Hi there, this is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about genomics and how they can explain many dilemmas, starting with vitamin D. Why vitamin D? Well, vitamin D caught my attention 20 years ago when I measured my own level and I was 7. I thought that was odd. Well, my mother had rickets as a little girl, and her doctor made her sleep out in the sunshine. And as I explored, I found out that in Milwaukee, in the year 1900, in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, when Milwaukee was home to 7 railroads and there was black smoke everywhere, blocking sunlight, 50% of Wisconsin children had evidence of rickets. That's not a small number. So it's a huge public health victory when we found out that cod liver oil, which turns out to have 400 units of vitamin D in a tablespoon, which is why our current vitamin pills have 400 units of vitamin D, cured rickets. And everybody was getting vitamin D and getting their cod liver oil. Well, history's progressed quite a lot. We've learned the pathways of vitamin D, but we still didn't tell me why my level was 7. Now, I've been taking and monitoring my vitamin D for 20 years, and it takes me, if I only take 5,000 units a day, I'll be around 40. And I was always curious why. And I've always taken vitamin D since then. And I'm aware that 10% of my genome is affected by it. My mood, I felt like my mood got better in winter. I had a change in my seasonal affective disorder. But I was curious. Well, this is a wonderful time to be alive because science is now leaping forward. And the Human Genome Project has, first of all, gave us the data that showed us how to track and measure DNA. Well, your DNA is composed of letters of an alphabet, and there's 4 letters. There's 4 bases in DNA. And those 4 bases have to match with each other. And they're matched in groups of 3. And each 3 of them code for 1 amino acid. So your DNA in your body is 8 billion pairs long. Got that? 8 billion. And we can now go through and measure all of them. Well, what happens if you have 3 amino acids in a row, and for whatever reason, this base pair makes a mistake and you put in a different base pair? Instead of having a GCC, you might have a TGC, and that codes for a different amino acid. That different amino acid will make the protein that it's coded for have a 1 single amino acid change. Might not change that protein much. You probably have a couple million base pair misses in your genome. And most of them are silent or don't mean much. But every one of us has a couple hundred. And if you get 1 gene from your mother and 1 gene from your father, and they're both defective, you might have a problem. Because you'll knock out the function of a particular gene. Well, it turns out that explains a lot of what's going on in all of us. In fact, my belief is this is a huge medical advance. It allows us to be precise. Instead of guessing and me saying, let's try this, it shows me exactly what I need to do. And when I look at my genome with a company called Intellex DNA, which I think is best in class in this process, they've taken the process of data, which is then turned into information, which is then turned into knowledge, which is turned into understanding, which is turned into wisdom. Well, doctors need the wisdom part of it. Having the data doesn't help. Even the knowledge doesn't help. You have to know, how do I integrate this with the published literature on what works and how do I change things? And Intellex has done that. And so I got my DNA checked. And guess what? Being the overachiever I am, I have both of the genes that make cholesterol. When sunlight hits a cholesterol molecule, It needs 2 proteins to help make it into the first analog of vitamin D. And I have a double error in both of them. Both of my parents had that error as well. So I am missing the first 2 genes. And Intellex tells me that I have a 1 to the 27th power chance of being low on vitamin D. 27th power. 27 zeros. That's a big number. No wonder I was low on vitamin D. Well, the fix is pretty easy. What will work for me? I just need to take enough vitamin D. That's pretty simple. I'll probably want to monitor my bone density as time goes on. I'll probably want to do those things as well. But I now have confidence that my high dose of vitamin D isn't just a trend. It's absolutely necessary for me. Now, softening my blow a little bit is in Intellex's report. There are 4 genes that are potentially beneficial, and I got a green on all 4 of them. So I had reds up at the top where it was trouble, but I had greens at the bottom. What mix does that make? We don't know yet, but being able to turn your genes into usable information matters. You should get your Intellex test done. Intellex DNA. There's a bunch of us doctors beginning to use it as part of our practice. Think about it. Dr. Whitcomb talking about genomics. Vitamin D explains the dilemmas.